It is 9 o'clock, and I am here and waiting for my friends, and I'm so excited that it's Wednesday night. Food addiction, fair and firm. Are you a food addict? I know I am a food addict. I know I am a recovering addict of many, many things. So, welcome, Susan Ann. Good to see you. I hope this is broadcasting from my Connie Stapleton page. That's what I'm hoping. Susan Ann, give me a little bit of feedback, will you? Am I on my Connie Stapleton PhD page or Connie Stapleton page? Hi. Hi, Dawn. Am I on my Connie Stapleton or my Connie Stapleton PhD page, Dawn? Because I'm trying to do this from my Connie Stapleton page. But I'm not sure because I also shared it with my Connie Stapleton PhD page. Can you tell, Dawn? Yay! Okay, so hi, Marta. All right, guys, I'm glad that you're here. I welcome you in. You know it's Wednesday night. This is where we meet. Hi, Vaughn. Glad to see you. I'm excited tonight because we're going to try to redo what we did last week. Talk about the boundaries thing. Hi, Connie. Yeah, so let me just, while it's just us girls here, share with you what this little thing here is. Yeah, you see that? I always get these interesting bruises, right? The big one on my chin was from yoga. Well, this one is from a filler. Oh, yeah. Got me a little bit of filler for the line here. And I'm loving it. I want you to know. So, hi, Wanda. Okay, so let's get a chatting. We're going to talk about boundaries with families because last week got all whacked up because of my trying to do this from my other page. That didn't work so well with my internet and my sound. So here we are tonight, and we are back, and I appreciate the help that y'all gave me, especially Yvonne, helping me find my my way around my computer and the internet, and Laura too. So, all right, guys, I want to talk about boundaries, and I want you guys to give me questions that you have. Hello to those who are just joining. We're going to do the same topic as last week because it got all messed up. So, boundaries. Boundaries are to protect us. Boundaries are to help keep us safe. Like, if you have a house. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Dawn. Hi, Laura. Laura, look. Ta-da! This, my friends, is my new Food Addiction Fair and Firm uniform. My Celebrate Vitamins t-shirt, sweatshirt. This is not a t-shirt. Now, Dawn, my Slimpressions friend and sponsor, if you would like me to demonstrate some shapewear, I won't do it. Oh, that was funny, but maybe I will. Who knows? Okay. But thank you, Laura, for sending me my uniform. I'm very excited about it. And Dawn, seriously, I'll be glad to hold some shapewear up so we can model that as well. Okay, guys, boundaries. Really important things in this process of recovery from addiction. One of the things that is pretty commonplace, I would say, with active addicts is a lack of boundaries. Oh, you guys, you know what? I have my workout hair on and everything tonight, so you're getting me with bruises and workout hair. Isn't it great just to be who you are? Right? Boundaries. You got to know when to let them down and when to put them up. And in places where you feel safe and comfortable and you feel surrounded by people you trust, you can let them down a little bit. So you know what? If I come looking like I look when I'm not at work, that means my boundaries are more open because you guys who meet with me, you know me. You know that this is who I am, right? bruises, warts, whatever, age spots, it's me. So my boundaries are a little more open when I'm with people I love and trust and care about. So what does that mean with like family members? Because, theoretically, we're supposed to love and trust our family members. So it would, kind of imply that we could let our boundaries down a little bit, feel safe. And yet, it's often the case too that with families, sometimes they're our most vulnerable places. Sometimes it's where we feel the most hurt. Whether or not the hurt was intentional, we personalize it. And somebody posted a comment that no matter who's saying the comment to them, they take things very, very personally. Hi, John. Hi, Robert. I want to answer any questions you have. So please, 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 please post whatever comments or questions that you have, because I'm going to keep a good eye on that tonight. Otherwise, I'm just going to kind of ramble like about boundaries and families and safety. In some, boundaries also are not like an across the board thing. You may feel more safe sharing your genuine feelings with family members. You may not feel safe sharing your genuine feelings with family members because maybe they, use them against you. You have to learn, first of all, how your boundaries are. Yes, Dawn, totally. Tough love with kids is hard. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. A friend of mine that I was just talking to on the phone shared with me some interactions with her teenage son, and the boundaries were amazing on her part. I said, you need to send this letter that you sent him into a parent's magazine. It was so good, firm, fair, loving, consistent. But it is tough, right? So whether you're the one setting boundaries with other people or you're, trying to set boundaries for yourself, it's a difficult thing to begin with, especially for people with addictions, because remember what the core of addictions are typically for most people? It's shame. Most of us carry a sense of shame about whether, it's about our using or our weight or our behavior when we're drinking or whatever it is. There's usually some shame, but I want to note that shame goes deeper. The shame goes deeper, and it's about who you think you are, right? Thank you, Laura, for informing people about that. So Wendy wants to know, how do I set boundaries with sensitive family members without hurting them? I'm going to review a sentence stem activity that I shared last week. Now, remember this. You are not responsible for the hurt necessarily. Now, we do contribute to other people's being hurt, right? But ultimately, people are responsible for whether or not they feel hurt by us or not. It's kind of like Eleanor Roosevelt, I think, is the one who said it, right? People cannot hurt our feelings without our permission. So that's theoretically true, and I think realistically that's true as well. However, that's not how most people think, and that's not how the general public interprets things. Or, when we talk to our friends about they hurt my feelings or whatever, we're like, of course they hurt your feelings. We don't say, well, it's up to you whether your feelings are hurt. But that really is the truth. So Dawn is saying, I need to set boundaries with my husband's family. They're mean to me at times, and I would just rather not deal with them anymore. And I say, kudos to you, friend, because you shouldn't have to deal with that. So this is not going to be easy, but I'm going to give you a couple of ways you might address that, right? Because different people are different, and you got to go with what fits your personality. But let's start with the textbook way of doing things, all right? So can you give me a specific example of some way that they're mean to you, or Or I'll give you an example of a friend. This is not a friend, by the way. But back in the day, how do you handle someone in the family who set the boundary on you? I am dead to her. Okay, we're going to deal with these. All right, so this friend says to people when we're out in public, and she introduces me as, this is Connie. She's my poor friend. Right? That's rude. So I need to set boundaries with this person. At that time in my life, there was no way in hell I felt capable of setting a boundary. First, I didn't know how. Secondly, I had so much shame, so much inner shame that I wouldn't have done it. So here's part of the deal. Here's part of what makes boundaries so difficult, is that if we don't believe that we're worth setting the boundary for, there's no way we're going to do it, because it is a difficult thing, because it's going to include confrontation. That can be a scary word for people, but it really doesn't mean a boom, 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 knockdown, drag out. It just means I'm going to say something to you that's important to me. So one of the ways I would say this, Dawn, is when, like, let's say you're talking to sister-in-law, when you, sister-in-law, or when you, Deb, who is my friend, introduce me to people as your poor friend, I feel insulted. So so I'm describing the scenario. I feel, here's what's important in this conversation, I feel insulted because it's embarrassing to me to be introduced to perfect strangers as being poor. The fact is, I may not have much money, but I'm certainly not poor in spirit. I'm certainly not poor in, having people who love me. So I would appreciate if you would refrain from doing that. So here are the parts. So Dawn, could you write this in for me in the comments? When blank, I feel blank because blank, what I would appreciate, right? Now, what we tend to do if we are going to, thank you, Dawn, for welcoming people. If we are going to react, which is probably what most of us learned to do, right? We learned to react when our feelings were hurt or when we felt defensive. And here's where this comes from, okay? Most of us did not have the benefit of learning from people who were very well equipped in setting boundaries. Our parents, our aunts, our uncles, there wasn't a lot of this kind of talk back in the day. If you were extremely fortunate or extremely blessed and did have people who, taught you by example or showed you, that's amazing. But most of us, if somebody says something to us, we're going to be like, God, that's rude. Okay, rude. Who do you think you are? Where do you get off calling me poor? Or, you kind of want to get into it, right? How do you know you're overstepping the boundary with adult children in their 20s? Okay, we'll get to that too. Good. Does this make sense? So when you confront, which isn't really it's not a confrontation in an ugly scene kind of way. It's sharing how you feel. You're basically asking somebody to do something because if they care about you, they care about how you feel, and they don't want to influence your feelings in that way. Now, remember, these people that we're dealing with probably haven't had the benefit of having these examples set for them either. So they're not likely to come back in a way that says, oh my gosh, I didn't want to embarrass you. I'm so sorry. They're probably going to go, oh my God, are you really that sensitive? Because people don't know how to communicate in healthy ways. So you're going to likely get a backlash of some sort. Not good. But here's the deal. Remember, we have a dance with people. We interact with them in a pretty standard way. So if you change the way you interact with them, after a certain time of you remaining consistent with that new, healthier way of doing it, they'll come around, right? So it's really hard not to get drawn into the old patterns. That's why it's more difficult with family, because we have a long history of an emotional connection. And there's usually some unpleasant baggage wrapped up in there somewhere. All right, I'm going to move on. Let's talk about every time there's a family function, somebody always has to say something about my weight. Absolutely. So here's what you do. Same kind of thing. I would do it individually, or seriously, if it's a collective thing, you can make a collective announcement that says, hey, everybody, listen up. I would like to say something, and I would appreciate if you would listen to me. I know that my weight has changed drastically. I'm so appreciative of every way you have supported me. Now, I don't know if these are supportive comments or not supportive comments, but I'm just going with this for the moment. I would appreciate that my weight not be the topic of conversation when we all get together. So when you ask me about my weight, I'm going to say, thank you for noticing. What else would you like to talk about? So you take matters into your own hands, right? And then if they continue it on, say, you may not appreciate this, or, clearly that's upsetting to you to not be able to talk about weight. I'm just not comfortable. So I'm just not willing to discuss it. You've got to set the bottom line. That's the boundary. I'm not willing to discuss it. I'm not willing to discuss it. You don't have to explain why. You can do it playfully. Oh, I know. Of course, everybody wants to talk about this, but you know what? I am so over it. Let's talk about something else. Let me ask you something. If that's your personality. And like Marta's saying, it is not easy, but it is worth it. But until you feel like you're worth it, it's going to be pretty hard to get the kahunas to do that. Speaking of which, I had a student when she was in medical school, and she'd always say, you know what, I need some balls. So finally I got her some little pink cheerleader pom-pom things, little fuzzies like for a keychain. I said, put these in your pocket, your white coat at medical school, and I want you to remember, you got balls, girl. And you just hold on to them suckers when you're having to set some boundaries with other people, some for yourself. Okay, let's see. It's so rude too. Yes, it is rude not to set boundaries, but to have people, thank you, Laura, I feel, because I would appreciate, excellent. All right. Let's see. Conversation, not confrontation. Terry, thank you for that. Thank you for that. It's a conversation. That is such a much better word. It's not a confrontation. That word scares people because they're anticipating an argument or a fight, right? So you want to have a conversation with people. Sometimes people say, I need to have a difficult conversation, or this could be a difficult conversation. It doesn't need to be, because all I want to do is share my feelings with you. And you could even say things like, I know you wouldn't want to hurt my feelings. I know you would never hurt my feelings on purpose. But my feelings are hurt when you introduce me as your poor friend. Now that approach might get you closer to, oh my God, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I had no idea that hurt your feelings. I was just making a joke. I thought it was funny. And then you can say, I know, but I would really appreciate if you would not do that. Right? So there you go. All right, we can set boundaries on our Facebook pages and Facebook groups also. Dawn, that is beautiful and that's wonderful. Now, the people who are monitoring the Facebook pages, Oftentimes we'll have an intro that says, in this Facebook page, these are kind of the rules. That's setting boundaries, right? I'm going to digress just a minute and ask people to ask yourself, what's so hard about setting boundaries for myself? Because if you're a parent, or if you've ever babysat, or if you caretake for elderly parents or aging family members or whatever it is, you've got to set boundaries, right? Setting a boundary for children is saying, in this house, we go to bed at 8 o'clock, unless there's a special occasion. In this house, we don't watch television while we eat dinner. We have conversation. In this house, we don't use words, we don't call people stupid. Whatever it is, that's a boundary. That's setting rules. Rules are boundaries. Guidelines are boundaries, right? So what's so darn hard, and why aren't we setting boundaries for ourselves when it comes to food? There's no food in my car. There's no food in my desk drawer. There are no drive-thrus for me. When your kid talks back and says, yeah, but I want to stay up and watch this show. I know you want to stay up and watch this show. It's a great show. We'll watch it again next week, but at 8 o'clock we turn it off and we go to bed. Because my job is to take care of you and make sure you get enough sleep. So what happens to setting those same kind of boundaries with ourselves when it comes to food? Because we're part of our own family, right? And part of this whole process with healing from an addiction is to heal that relationship with ourselves and to heal from the shame, not let that shame run our lives. So, setting boundaries, yeah, but I want to go through the drive-thru, says your stubborn little kid inside your head. And your healthy adult needs to respond just like you would to your own child. Of course you want to go through the drive-thru. That's always been a place where you've gotten things that make you feel better. My job as your healthy adult self is to help you remember there are better ways, less harmful ways for you to get your needs met. Let's work on those. And the answer is no. There's no drive-thru. So setting boundaries with yourself. All right. Yes, I like that. I'm not willing to discuss it. Right. People tell you you need to eat. How I would address that with my personality, and again, you can do it however suits your personality. I would be like, oh my gosh, I'm so appreciative that you're caring about me. I know it's really interesting and different to see me at this weight. I want to assure you I'm eating, and I talked to my doctor about this very thing. Then let it go. Or you might want to joke and say, oh my God, somebody's telling me I need to eat. Can you believe that? I never thought I'd hear that in my life. You know what? I've heard that from you before. And if you need to tell me, that's on you, but I need to tell you I'm on it. Thank you for caring. However fits hi Vera, whatever fits, hi Robert, your personality. So, but you got to set boundaries. Boundaries are super, super important in order for us to protect ourselves. And really, I think that setting boundaries with yourself is one of the things that's most difficult for so many people. So just let me know, is it easier for you to set boundaries with other people, or is it easier for you to set boundaries with yourself? All right, let's see. I guess I just don't subscribe to rules. Okay. You know what, Terry? That's a good point, because some people are like, don't give me a rule because I'm not following rules. I'm a rule breaker. The rules don't apply to me, which, by the way, is kind of the mentality or one of the isms of being an addict. It's like the rules don't apply to me because, remember, we talked a little bit about terminal uniqueness. People die from being terminally unique, right? I'm not going to set rules for myself because, I just rebel against rules. Well, then call them something else. Call them boundaries. Call them guidelines. Call them, saving your life. Find another word that works for you. Okay? But, if you're not going to subscribe to rules, I mean, you can run the stoplight. There are rules, and rules are set in place for our safety. All right, where were we? Easier to set boundaries with others for Robin. I sometimes have a hard time setting boundaries. Linda, with yourself or with others? Now, I shared last week with you a little bit about my history and my relationship with my mother and how difficult it was for me to set boundaries. Even when I'd had years of therapy and even after years of being a therapist and being solid in my recovery in many, many ways. But because those feelings that developed so early in my youth of, oh my God, when I was a child, I just felt like I needed to take care of my mother emotionally. Like I wanted to make her happy. And so the first step in setting boundaries with my mother really needed to be learning to set boundaries with myself and say, remind myself that it is not my job to take care of my mother's emotional needs. Now, it doesn't mean I wasn't going to ignore her or be rude or whatever, but my mother's job is to learn to get her own needs met. My job as a parent is to learn to get my own needs met. Somebody asked earlier about setting boundaries with young adult children. I have young adult children. They're not in their 20s anymore. They're all in their 30s. But having grandchildren is an area where a person needs to learn to set boundaries or you could get walked all over, right? So because in my home, when my children were being raised, they had boundaries set for them. Now, we would allow them to share their input. An example I will share with you is one time my girls wanted to go on a bus trip with their church group. And the church group was going to go to Atlanta from Augusta, and they were going to attend this event. And it was in relation to something that I feel like was not appropriate for their age group. I thought it was kind of a frightening topic. I thought it was, when I worked in my PhD program, we used to have kids from these like group homes come in, and they would be terrified because their churches were talking to them about these particular things. And I'm like, you know what? I'm really not comfortable with this. So we had a discussion, my husband and myself and the girls, and we listened to what they had to say, and we talked about it. We said, listen, we love that you're involved with your youth group. We love a lot of the activities that you do. But in this case, as your parents, we're going to say no because we're uncomfortable with this. It's okay for you to be upset about it, but this is our call, and we're going to say no this time. So our children, as a result of this kind of thing, which I never had as a kid, it was my way or the highway, do it because or else, right? My children as young adults have no trouble setting boundaries with me in regard to their children. For example, and I don't have any, I know these are your children. So one day, and they'll say, no, Mom, I don't want you to give them this, or I don't want you to give them that. And it's like, fine, whatever you want. They're your kids. They're your rules. If I have an issue with them, I'll discuss them with you in private, and, what you say goes. They're your children. Unless I think they're in danger or something, right? But that is not the case. So one day we're out at the lake, and we're on the boat, and Erin is my daughter. Her husband is Trent. They're out on inner tubes, and they're in the lake, and they're just floating around. And their daughter, who's probably like 3 at the time, she wanted to go in the water. Well, she had a life jacket on. I mean, a full life jacket, right? And my daughter was like, I don't want her to come in here. We had a little baby pool on the boat that she was playing in. And I said, honey, Trent is right there. You're right there. She's got a life jacket on. I think she's going to be okay. And she's like, she snapped at me. She's like, they're not your children. At which point I could have gotten offended or ticked off or whatever, and I could have, gotten into it with her. But I was like, you're absolutely right. She is not my daughter, and I will absolutely abide by your rules. But I'm going to tell you that there are times I'm going to be sharing my opinion with you, and you can veto it, and that's fine. So she set a boundary with me. I didn't get all uptight about it. There are boundaries. We built this house, and it's for the family. And so we just sat down with everybody when we moved in and said, listen, this is your home too. The boundaries are, if the kids destroy the place, make them clean it up before they go, and you help them. If you want to have events here, they have wedding showers and baby showers and, a friend Thanksgiving, and it's yours to do that. Just clean it up when you're done, So it's just things like that. That shouldn't be a big deal. But if you don't feel good enough about yourself, if you're like, oh, my kids will be mad at me, here's what stops us a lot of times from setting boundaries. They'll be mad at me. And had a young woman the other day in my office, and we were talking about setting boundaries with her mother. And she was very fearful and frightened of that. And she finally said, she'll be mad at me. And I said, and if your mother's mad at you, then what? And she said very honestly, who will I have? Then who will I have? And I thought that was beautiful. And so if you can be that honest with yourself and kind of dig down to what's the big deal about setting a boundary? What is your fear? If they're mad at you or they don't like you or they, what is it? And it's usually about you. What is it about you that prevents you from setting boundaries? And that's another whole topic, right? So, all right, where are we? It's almost time. Let's just kind of sum up, okay? I wanted to post a comment that I copied off of. Okay, there's a book called The Four Agreements. It's not my favorite book by any stretch of the imagination. But when somebody asked me, somebody said that they take things too personally. I fear they'll tell the rest of the family and they won't like me either. Not that that's not a legitimate fear, but if that's the case in your family and you're pretty sure that that's what's going to happen, then you need to set the boundary with you in your mouth and keep it shut, right? So maybe you want to confide in somebody, but if you do, this is going to be the consequence. Then you got to make a decision. Is it worth me sharing that? Or do I need to bolster my boundaries a little bit here? Because I don't want that consequence. So you have to make a choice for yourself, right? Okay. So what I just posted came from this book, The Four Agreements. And The Four Agreements, I think it's a little bit of a weird book. Some people absolutely love it and it changed their lives. What I do absolutely love about it and what I do think can be life-changing are the actual four agreements, which is be impeccable with your word. Mean what you say and say what you mean. Clearly, there are going to be times when you say you're going to do something and something comes up and you maybe can't. But for the most part, be impeccable with your word. Choose your words wisely. And be honest. Be genuine. That's one of the agreements. Don't take things personally. Because the truth is, most of the time, let's think about this. If somebody says, you're mean, or you're rude, or you're abrasive, or you're whatever, what you want to do with that is you want to consider it. It's feedback, right? So consider the feedback because it might fall into that window. Remember, we've talked about the Johari's window of things you don't know about yourself. You might want to go, am I abrasive? You might want to say to your friends, and you got to talk to friends who really would be willing to say, yeah, you can be, right? My daughter told me today, her boss told her that her email had a tone. And she said, She said, and I loved this about my daughter. She said to her boss, it probably did. My mother tells me I have a tone all the time. The only reason that I know that about my daughter is I know where she got it. And I tell people forever, I have to constantly work on my tone because my tone can be a lot, my bark can be a lot meaner than it feels, than my bite is intended to be, right? So I constantly have to work on my tone. My daughter's learning this about herself. So if somebody gives you feedback, process it and go, is there truth to that or is there not? But don't be like I'm a horrible human being. You know, it's not about your character. And it's just an observation by another person. What you do with that is your responsibility. You know, it's not like you want to blow everything off and say, oh, here's my least favorite thing. Here's what people do to deflect that, anything. Oh, they're just jealous. How do you know they're jealous? That's an assumption on our part or your part, right? If somebody, that's a common response. Well, they just said that because they're jealous. Maybe not, but what are you doing? Thinking you can read somebody's mind like that. It's just, something we do and it's not real appropriate. So say what you mean what you say, be impeccable with your word, quit taking things so personally. Everything's not about you. In fact, not a whole lot is about you. It's just not. Right? Oh, I know the boss was talking to me today in that meeting. Maybe, but you don't know unless you go ask them. Right? Quit taking things so personally. Taking things so personally is about us. It's about how we feel about ourselves. That's all there is to that. If we're taking things personally, we talk about wanting to live in the present, which is a good place to live. And yet, so much of our day is spent living in an emotion or a thought or a feeling that's from the past, but we're hanging on to it and we're bringing it into our present and it's not serving us well at all. They think I'm whatever. How do you know? Right? God, we make our lives really difficult. Don't make assumptions. We make assumptions all the time. I'll bet you 98% of the time they're wrong. All right. And always do your best. Those are 4 really great things to try to live by. And we are way over time. All right, when we worry about others or take on a caretaker role, it's about us, not the other person. We are avoiding our own stuff. I agree with that, Terry. I agree with that. Of course, we're nurturing maybe, and we care about other people. But if we give up our own stuff to take care of others all the time, we are avoiding our own stuff, right? Let's see. Personal and I picked bosses just like my dad. Well, that's not surprising, right? You probably also picked men like your father. I tell it how it is. Some people like it and some don't, right? Well, you got to be true to you, right? As long as you're being appropriate, not being ugly and calling people names and making accusations and just saying, this is how I feel, this is what I think. All right. How do you know? Okay. What is the name of that book you mentioned? The 4 Agreements. Don't own what isn't yours. None of your business what other people think about us. That's true. So what we are trying to do in this world is heal the relationship we have with ourselves. The relationship we have with ourselves is probably the most messed up one to begin with. And as we heal that relationship with ourselves, all of our other relationships will improve. The relationships with other human beings and our relationship with food, shopping, gambling, whatever it is, alcohol, drugs, whatever it is. So, thank you guys for joining me. The last agreement, the 4th agreement. On a lighter note, I set boundaries with my dog, Lily. If I'm in bed, she must snuggle with me. That sounds like a command. Good for you, Dawn. All right, guys. This is deep stuff. And it's not just common sense stuff, because in the world of psychology, everything goes deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's what I try to share a little bit in this, this half hour, 40 minutes, whatever it turns out to be. So ponder it. Try not to take things so personally. Most of the things aren't about you. Take what you like and leave the rest. But remember when I shared with you, if 10 people tell you you have a tail, you might want to turn around and take a look. Because if 10 different people in 10 different arenas are like, wow, you're kind of an abrasive person, there's probably some truth to that. Now, you don't have to take it personally like I'm a horrible human being, but you might want to take that information and go, is that who I want to be? Is that the way I want to present myself? Because if I'm presenting myself as abrasive, I'm going to get less people listening to me than if I soften it up a little bit. Because you get more flies with honey, right? It's been a tough lesson for me because I'm kind of a bottom line, down to earth. Here's how it is. This is what I think. This is how I feel. So sometimes I have to put a little bit more effort into softening things up, adding a few extra words. Takes a little more time, a little more effort on my part, but it usually works out a little better. What I would do is go onto Google and do some searching. How do I set healthy boundaries? And if you read 10 articles and 8 of them are saying similar things, then you might want to consider that as 10 people telling you you have a tail. All right, the tried and true. Y'all, I cannot ever tell you enough how much I appreciate you spending your time with me. And we got some exciting things going on this weekend here. I'm going to have a house full of people in the weight loss journey. And we're going to be recording some live videos and making those available. So it's going to be a good time. And we're going to be setting up for the retreats that are coming up this summer. They're going to be amazing. 5 days. We're going to dig down, dig deep, help you sort some of this stuff out for yourself in the process of healing that relationship with yourself, because that's what this is about. All right, my friends, have a good night. Make it a good night, because it's your health, your responsibility. My health, my responsibility. This day and every day. Make it a great one. We'll talk soon.